Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why some women shine effortlessly while others struggle to find their spark? It's not luck, it's not background, it's habits. You see, success is never an accident, it's a result of small daily actions repeated with discipline, love, and purpose. A successful woman doesn't wait for motivation, she creates it. She doesn't wait for opportunity, she builds it. Today, let's explore 10 daily habits that can transform not just your success, but your peace, your relationships, and your inner strength. Because remember, how you live each day determines how you shape your destiny. She rises before the world wakes up. The quiet of the early morning becomes her sacred space, her temple of transformation. When others are lost in the noise of alarms, messages, and notifications, she chooses stillness. Because she knows that peace is not found in the rush of the day, but in the calmness of the dawn. The successful woman values those golden hours when the world is silent and her thoughts are clear. She opens her eyes not to chaos but to clarity. She sits in silence, breathes deeply, and allows herself to connect with something higher, a purpose, a dream, a sense of gratitude that fills her heart. She doesn't begin her day by comparing her life with someone else's highlight reel on social media. No, she begins by grounding herself. Sometimes she prays, sometimes she meditates, sometimes she simply sits with her thoughts. In that silence, she finds her strength. It's in those early minutes that she decides how her day will unfold, not by chance, but by choice. Because a woman who controls her morning controls her direction. She treats her morning like a sacred appointment, not to meet the world, but to meet herself. She understands that every sunrise is a new opportunity, a gentle reminder that life is offering her another chance to grow, to create, and to give her best. While others complain about time, she creates time. She doesn't rush through her mornings. She embraces them with grace and mindfulness. She knows that rushing from the moment she wakes up only leads to exhaustion and emotional noise. So she slows down intentionally, not out of laziness, but out of wisdom. She begins with gratitude. Thank you, she whispers, for breath, for life, for another chance to do better. Gratitude becomes her morning perfume, invisible but powerful. Then she feeds her spirit, maybe by reading something uplifting, maybe by journaling her thoughts, maybe by simply sipping her tea in silence while watching the sunrise. Those little rituals aren't routines. They are acts of self-respect. A successful woman doesn't allow her mornings to be stolen by distractions. She protects that time fiercely because she knows it shapes her mindset for the entire day. She understands that her success is not determined by how late she works, but by how intentionally she begins. The peace she cultivates in the early hours becomes her armor throughout the challenges of the day. She uses that time to visualize her goals, to set her tone, and to whisper words of affirmation to herself. I am capable. I am calm. I am enough. These words may sound simple, but they carry the power to reshape her entire inner world. Because before she conquers the outer world, she first conquers the noise within. She may stretch, journal, read, or simply breathe, but every action she takes is guided by purpose. She doesn't see the morning as an obligation, she sees it as an opportunity to align her heart, her mind, and her spirit. And when she finally steps into her day, she doesn't just walk, she flows. She moves with intention, confidence, and serenity that others can feel. Her success begins long before her workday starts. It begins in those sacred moments of dawn when she chooses peace over panic, gratitude over gossip, presence over pressure. The successful woman knows that every sunrise gives her two choices: to sleep through her dreams or to rise and chase them. And she, with calm determination and unwavering grace, always chooses to rise. What she understands that what she feeds her mind is just as important as what she feeds her body. Every day, she makes a conscious effort to nourish her mind with positivity, wisdom, and depth. A successful woman does not allow her thoughts to be dictated by gossip, negativity, or the noise of the world. She chooses her mental diet with care because she knows that her thoughts shape her emotions and her emotions shape her actions. Each morning, before the demands of the world pull her in different directions, she gives herself the gift of learning. She opens a book, listens to something inspiring, or reflects on a lesson that can add value to her life. She understands that success is not about having all the answers, but about staying curious enough to keep seeking them. Knowledge, for her, is not an obligation, it's a form of self-respect. She believes that a woman who stops learning stops growing, and she refuses to let her potential shrink because of comfort or routine. When she reads, she doesn't just look for information, she looks for transformation. She reads not to impress others with what she knows, but to improve who she is. Whether it's a few pages from a spiritual book, a story of someone's journey, or a line of wisdom that makes her pause, she absorbs it fully. She allows those words to shape her mindset, to soften her ego, to challenge her beliefs, and to elevate her thinking. Throughout her day, she guards her mind from negativity as if it were a priceless treasure. She doesn't waste her mental energy on complaints, drama, or meaningless comparisons. When faced with toxic conversations, she doesn't argue or absorb them. She silently chooses peace. She reminds herself that she cannot control what others say, but she can always control what she allows to enter her mind. Her calmness is not weakness, it's strength refined through awareness. When people around her gossip, she chooses wisdom. When others focus on problems, she focuses on solutions. When others criticize, she looks for understanding. She has trained her mind to look for light, even when surrounded by darkness. And this is what makes her powerful, not her position or possessions, but her perspective. Every day, she dedicates time to personal growth. She invests in books, courses, or conversations that make her better. She doesn't wait for a crisis to start improving. She grows even when things are going well. Because she knows that growth is not an event, it's a lifestyle. Just like the body needs food every day, the mind needs knowledge, reflection, and renewal. Sometimes she writes in her journal, capturing her insights, dreams, and lessons. It's not just about recording events, but about reflecting on experiences. In that process, she learns to understand herself more deeply, her triggers, her strengths, her patterns. She knows that the woman who understands herself is the woman who cannot be easily shaken by the world. She also surrounds herself with people who inspire her, those who challenge her to rise higher, not those who pull her down. Her conversations are intentional. She doesn't seek shallow validation, but deep understanding. She values the company of minds that talk about ideas, purpose, and growth, not people who spend their energy judging others. Whenever she feels stuck, she returns to wisdom. She knows that knowledge is the light that guides her through confusion. When life throws challenges her way, she recalls the lessons she has learned from books, from mentors, from her own reflections, and applies them with patience. This is why she rarely reacts impulsively. Her wisdom becomes her shield, her calm becomes her strength. For her, feeding the mind is not just an act of education, it's an act of empowerment. Every page she reads, every reflection she makes, every moment she spends in learning, it all adds up, shaping her into a woman of depth, grace, and strength. She understands that beauty fades, possessions change, but wisdom remains. And so she continues, day after day, to nurture her mind like a garden, planting seeds of knowledge, watering them with curiosity, and harvesting peace and purpose. In a world that tries to distract her at every turn, she chooses focus. In a society that glorifies appearances, she chooses substance. She knows that a well-fed mind is her greatest asset, one that will guide her through every challenge, decision, and dream. And that is why she never stops learning, because she knows that every bit of wisdom she gains today will become the foundation of her success tomorrow. She has learned that emotional balance is not about ignoring her feelings, but about understanding them. Life, she knows, will not always be gentle. There will be storms, disappointments, misunderstandings, and moments that test her patience. But she has realized that her peace is her power. Instead of letting emotions control her, she has trained her heart to respond with grace, not reaction. A successful woman doesn't allow her emotions to dictate her destiny. She allows wisdom to guide her response. When anger rises, she pauses. When hurt comes, she breathes. When chaos surrounds her, she steps back to observe rather than absorb. It took her years to learn that reacting quickly is easy, but responding calmly is strength. She doesn't suppress her emotions. She acknowledges them. She feels them fully, but she doesn't let them control her choices. She has learned that her peace is too precious to be surrendered to every passing situation. There was a time when words could easily shake her, when opinions would break her confidence, when criticism would echo in her mind for days. But now she understands that people project their own chaos onto others. She no longer takes everything personally. Instead of asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" she asks, "What is this teaching me?" That shift in mindset turns every emotional storm into an opportunity for growth. When someone offends her, she doesn't rush to defend herself. She has learned that not every battle deserves her energy. Silence, she's discovered, often speaks louder than anger. She walks away not because she's weak, but because she values her inner calm more than the need to prove a point. That is emotional maturity, knowing when to stand firm and when to let go. She practices self-awareness like an art. When she feels overwhelmed, she doesn't hide behind distractions. She takes time to understand what her emotions are trying to tell her. She may write them down, pray about them, or sit quietly until the storm inside her settles. She gives herself permission to feel, but not permission to spiral. She knows that pain is temporary, but the lessons it brings are permanent. She doesn't let anger make her speak words she'll later regret, nor sadness make her forget her worth. Instead, she allows her emotions to become teachers. Anger teaches her where her boundaries are. Sadness reminds her to slow down and rest. Fear challenges her to trust more deeply. Joy encourages her to stay grateful. Every emotion has a message, and she listens carefully without judgment. There are days when she breaks down, and that's okay. Emotional balance isn't about being unshakable all the time. It's about returning to peace faster each time you fall. She wipes her tears, straightens her crown, and moves forward with quiet strength, because she knows resilience is not the absence of pain, but the ability to rise despite it. She practices forgiveness, not because others always deserve it, but because she deserves peace. She knows holding on to resentment only poisons her own heart. When she forgives, she doesn't forget what happened. She simply releases the emotional weight it carried. She whispers to herself, "I choose peace over bitterness." And in that choice, she wins every unseen battle. In her relationships, she brings understanding instead of judgment. She listens with empathy, speaks with intention, and acts with compassion. She knows that everyone is fighting their own invisible wars. Her calm presence becomes a healing force. People feel safe around her because she radiates balance, not chaos. She becomes a light in dark moments simply because she has mastered the art of not letting darkness live inside her. Her emotional balance also reflects in how she handles failure. When things don't go her way, she doesn't fall into self-pity. She reflects, she learns, and she adjusts. She doesn't let temporary disappointment turn into permanent discouragement. She understands that every delay is protection, every setback is redirection, and every pain carries purpose. She has learned that true emotional strength comes from surrender, surrendering the need to control everything, surrendering the illusion that she must always be perfect. Instead, she accepts her humanity with love. She allows herself to be both soft and strong, both emotional and wise. She has realized that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the birthplace of genuine connection and courage. Every day, she practices calmness like a discipline. She breathes before responding. She thinks before speaking. She prays before reacting. Her serenity is not accidental, it is cultivated. She understands that peace doesn't mean everything around her is perfect. It means she has chosen not to let imperfections disturb her inner harmony. She radiates a quiet strength, not loud, not boastful, but deeply grounded. When people meet her, they feel stability, not because her life is easy, but because she has learned to stay centered, even when the world is spinning. That is her secret, emotional balance, born from self-awareness, forgiveness, and faith. And this is what makes her truly successful, not just in what she achieves, but in who she becomes while facing life's storms with grace. She knows that a day without direction easily turns into a day without progress. That is why she begins each morning with intention, not impulse. Before the world demands her attention, she takes a moment to decide how she wants her day to unfold. For her, planning is not about controlling life, it is about aligning with purpose. A successful woman doesn't just wake up and hope for a good day, she creates it through clarity and conscious choices. As the sun rises, she sits quietly with her thoughts and asks herself, what truly matters today. She doesn't fill her list with meaningless business because she understands that being busy is not the same as being productive. Instead, she focuses on the few things that will move her closer to her goals, nurture her relationships, and strengthen her peace. Every task she chooses carries intention, whether it's work, family, or personal growth. Her priorities are not random, they are rooted in purpose. She often writes her thoughts down, small goals, heartfelt intentions, or gentle reminders. Her journal is not filled with pressure, but with purpose. It's where her dreams meet discipline. She writes not just what she needs to do, but why it matters. That why keeps her focused when distractions try to pull her away, because she knows the world will always throw noise at her. Messages, demands, opinions. But clarity is her compass. When she is clear, she cannot be easily shaken. She doesn't live her days reacting to emergencies. She knows that when she plans ahead, she leads her life. When she doesn't, life leads her. Planning gives her peace because it allows her to move through the day with rhythm, not rush. She takes time to structure her tasks, the important, the urgent, and the meaningful. She doesn't try to do everything. She chooses to do what matters most. That's the secret to her effectiveness. Not doing more, but doing what matters deeply and doing it well. Throughout her day, she remains flexible. She understands that not everything will go according to plan, and that's okay. When interruptions happen, she doesn't get frustrated, she adjusts gracefully. Her plans are not chains, they are a compass. They guide her but never imprison her. She knows that balance lies in having direction, but also trusting the flow of life. Before diving into her work, she pauses for a moment to visualize her day. She imagines herself moving through each task with focus, peace, and confidence. She feels the satisfaction of completing her responsibilities and the joy of contributing to something meaningful. This visualization gives her motivation from within. She doesn't wait for the world to inspire her. She inspires herself through clear intention. She also knows that planning her day means planning her energy. She pays attention to when she feels most creative, focused, or calm, and she designs her schedule accordingly. She doesn't push herself to exhaustion just to check boxes. She works with awareness, taking breaks when needed, slowing down when necessary, and reminding herself that productivity without peace is not success. At the end of the day, she often reflects on what went well and what didn't. This reflection is her way of staying accountable to herself. She doesn't criticize herself for what wasn't done, she learns from it. Every evening becomes a quiet teacher, reminding her where she can improve tomorrow. Over time, these small reflections shape her into a woman who is both disciplined and compassionate, someone who expects excellence but practices gentleness. She plans not just her work, but also her moments of stillness. She sets aside time for gratitude, rest, and connection because she knows that success without balance is emptiness disguised as achievement. Her schedule always has space for her soul. She never forgets that she is not a machine, but a human being who needs time to breathe, love, and feel alive. People often wonder how she manages so many things so gracefully. The truth is, she doesn't manage time, she manages focus. She has learned that every yes requires 100 no's, so she chooses wisely. She knows that saying no to distractions is saying yes to her dreams. And because of that discipline, her life feels lighter, calmer, and more meaningful. Her purposeful planning is not limited to daily tasks, it extends to her vision for life. She regularly reflects on where she's headed, not just in her career, but in her relationships, her growth, and her peace. She reminds herself that goals are not just about achieving something great, but about becoming someone greater. That awareness keeps her grounded. She doesn't plan to impress others, she plans to express her purpose. Even on chaotic days, she returns to her list, takes a breath, and realigns. She whispers to herself, one step at a time. That's her secret. She doesn't rush through her life, she walks through it intentionally. Because she knows that every day is a brick, and how she lays it determines the strength of her future. So when you see her calm, focused, and steady, it's not luck. It's the quiet result of deliberate living. She has built her rhythm through intention. Her peace comes from clarity, her success from consistency, and her fulfillment from purpose. She doesn't just plan her day, she plans her life, not around chaos, but around meaning, and that is what makes her unstoppable. She has come to understand that taking care of herself is not an act of selfishness, but an act of self-respect. For too long, the world has told women that strength means endurance, that love means sacrifice, and that success means doing everything for everyone else. But she has learned that true strength begins with balance, and balance begins with self-care. A successful woman knows that she cannot pour from an empty cup. She cannot inspire others, nurture her dreams, or live with joy if she is running on exhaustion. So she chooses every single day to take care of her body, her mind, and her soul, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Her mornings are sacred. Before the noise of the world begins, she gives herself time to breathe, stretch, and feel alive. She doesn't rush into her phone or her responsibilities. She starts with herself. Sometimes it's yoga, sometimes a quiet walk, sometimes sitting silently with a cup of tea. But whatever it is, it's her way of reminding herself, I matter too. That simple act of mindfulness creates a ripple effect of calm throughout her day. She listens to her body with compassion. When it asks for rest, she doesn't silence it with guilt. She knows that burnout is not bravery. She understands that rest is productive. That a well-rested mind creates better ideas, and a peaceful heart makes wiser choices. She takes time to nourish herself with healthy food, not because of how she wants to look, but because of how she wants to feel. She values the energy that comes from caring for her health. Every meal, every glass of water, every deep breath becomes a gentle reminder that her body is the temple through which her dreams move. But her self-care isn't only physical. She tends to her inner world with just as much devotion. She guards her mental peace fiercely. She doesn't let toxic conversations, negative people, or unnecessary drama take residence in her heart. When something disturbs her peace, she doesn't react impulsively. She steps back, reflects, and chooses stillness. Her peace is her protection, and she protects it as her most sacred possession. There are days when life feels heavy, when expectations pile up and emotions run deep. On those days, she allows herself to pause. She doesn't push herself to smile when her heart needs silence. She sits with her feelings, acknowledges her pain, and lets it flow without shame. She has learned that being kind to herself in her lowest moments is what truly heals her. She doesn't expect perfection, she honors progress. She also surrounds herself with things that refill her spirit. Music that soothes her, books that inspire her, nature that reminds her of life's beauty. Sometimes self-care looks like a quiet evening alone, sometimes like laughter with friends, and sometimes like saying no without apology. She no longer feels guilty for choosing herself because she knows that when she takes care of her well-being, she shows up in the world as her best self, more loving, more creative, more grounded. There was a time when she believed that taking a break meant she was falling behind. But now she knows that rest doesn't slow her down, it helps her move forward with strength and clarity. She realizes that peace and success can coexist, that ambition without peace is just pressure, and achievement without joy is empty. So she gives herself permission to pause, to breathe, to simply be. She practices gratitude as part of her self-care. Every night before she sleeps, she takes a moment to thank life for health, for love, for the lessons that shaped her. Gratitude softens her heart and shifts her focus from what's missing to what's already beautiful. It reminds her that she doesn't need to chase happiness, she can create it through appreciation. Her self-care also includes boundaries. She knows that saying yes to everything leads to resentment, not peace. So she has learned to say no gracefully to things, to people, to energy that drains her. She no longer over-explains or apologizes for her limits. She has realized that boundaries are not walls, they are bridges that protect her energy so she can give her best to the things that truly matter. She treats herself with the same kindness she gives to others. When she makes mistakes, she doesn't drown in self-criticism. She learns, forgives herself, and moves forward. She no longer measures her worth by her productivity or her perfection. Her worth is intrinsic. It comes from within. She cherishes her uniqueness, embraces her flaws, and honors her journey with compassion. Sometimes her self-care looks like discipline, waking up early, working out, following her plans. And other times it looks like slowing down, letting go, and resting her soul. She understands that caring for herself doesn't always mean doing what's easy, it means doing what's right for her growth. It's a balance between effort and ease, between striving and surrendering. And through this balance, she becomes radiant, not just in appearance, but in spirit. Her calm presence, her steady energy, her peaceful smile, they all reflect the love she gives to herself. People around her feel safe, inspired, and uplifted because her energy comes from a place of wholeness. She doesn't chase validation anymore. She simply glows from within. Taking care of herself has become her way of honoring life. She knows that when she is healthy, centered, and peaceful, she can give more to the world. Her self-care is not selfish, it is service. Because a woman who is at peace with herself brings peace to everyone around her. And so she continues every day, gently but firmly, to choose herself, not because she is her only priority, but because she finally understands that she is her first priority. Gratitude for her is not a one-off emotion, but a daily practice that colors everything she does. She begins and ends her day with it. Not because it's trendy, but because she has learned that thanksgiving is the simplest, most reliable way to turn what she has into enough. In the quiet of the morning, before the rush, she breathes and lists small mercies, the warmth of her blanket, the steady beat of her heart, the roof above her head. Those small acknowledgments act like anchors. They steady her when the day stretches and the to-do list grows heavy. Saying, "Thank you," becomes a way of aligning her soul with reality, not denying difficulty, but choosing to see gifts even inside struggle. She practices gratitude in tiny, concrete rituals. Sometimes she writes 3 things she's grateful for in a small notebook. Mundane things, not grandiose achievements. A friend's encouraging message. A cup of tea that tasted surprisingly good. A quiet 5 minutes of uninterrupted thought. Other days she slips a small note into a jar labeled "Today's Grace," and the jar becomes a visible reminder that blessings accumulate. When life feels chaotic, she opens the jar and reads those notes, simple as they are, reminder that life is mostly made of small mercies strung together, not the rare fireworks we wait for. Gratitude for her is also an act of naming. She speaks thankfulness aloud. She calls someone to say thank you for being there. She writes letters, sometimes mailed, sometimes messaged, thanking people for moments that mattered, for lessons that stung but taught, for kindnesses that went unnoticed at the time. These small acts of acknowledgement do something subtle and powerful. They deepen relationships. People who feel seen and appreciated become allies rather than obligations. Her habit of thanking others transforms ordinary interactions into threads of connection, and those threads make life warmer and more cooperative. When disappointment comes, she does not pretend to be grateful for the hurt, but she looks for what the hurt is teaching her. She might not be able to say, "Thank you," for the pain itself, but she can be grateful for resilience born from it, for friends who stayed, for clarity that arrives through loss. That reframing doesn't minimize the difficulty, it reframes it so that suffering does not become a permanent identity. She learns to say, "This is hard, and I can still find brightness here." Over time, that practice builds a mind that notices possibility even when the horizon looks gray. Her gratitude practice keeps her from the trap of constant comparison. In a culture that measures worth by the loudest, shiniest markers, she returns each morning to what is quiet and true. She counts the small wins: a patient conversation, a task completed with care, a moment of laughter. Those small wins accumulate into self-respect. She does not base her happiness on what others have. She roots it in what she already possesses and cultivates. By doing so, she frees herself from envy and the exhausting treadmill of more. Gratitude also lives in her body. She eats with appreciation, not guilt, savoring the flavor, acknowledging the hands and time that brought her the meal. She moves with appreciation for what her body can do rather than punishment for what it cannot. When she rests without guilt, because rest is not indulgence. It is part of being thankful for the life she has been given and keeping it well. That embodied gratitude makes her gentler with herself. She no longer hounds herself for every misstep, but learns to encourage the same way she would encourage a friend. She practices gratitude as an intentional counter to entitlement. When achievement comes, she bows inwardly to the web of help that made it possible: mentors, luck, timing, discipline. That humility protects her from arrogance. She celebrates success with a quiet heart, aware that tomorrow's challenge could require the same help again. Gratitude keeps her grounded in humility, which in turn keeps her open to learning and to relationships that matter more than accolades. Gratitude is also a discipline of attention. She trains herself to look for beauty in ordinary places. The way light hits a window, a child's unexpected kindness, the resilience of a plant pushing through concrete. Training attention this way changes the architecture of her mind. It grows pathways that look for abundance instead of scarcity. This neuromuscular repatterning, as simple as noticing good things more often, rewires how she experiences life. Joy becomes less dependent on external gains and more a default posture toward what is present. She uses gratitude to steer decisions. When faced with choices, she asks, "Which option will I be grateful for in a year?" That question reframes impulsive wants into long-term values. Gratitude becomes a lens for prioritizing what is meaningful over what is merely urgent. It keeps her decisions aligned with relationships, health, and inner peace. The things that, when she looks back, she knows she will truly cherish. At night, she practices a gentle inventory of the day, what she received, what she gave, what taught her. She does not use this moment to criticize herself harshly, but to note progress and lessons. She thanks herself for the small acts of courage and kindness she gave, and she forgives the missteps. That nightly ritual closes the loop of the day with softness, turning fatigue into satisfied rest rather than regretful exhaustion. Over months and years, those nightly closures build a life traced by gratitude rather than regret. Finally, gratitude for her is active, not passive. She pairs thankfulness with generosity. Feeling grateful moves her to give time, attention, resources, because she understands that blessings want to flow. Her gratitude is not hoarded, it radiates. In doing so, she experiences the richest joy, the knowledge that her thankful heart can be a source of healing and hope for others. Gratitude, then, is not merely a feeling she visits occasionally. It is the posture she lives in, the quiet revolution that reshapes her inner world and, quietly, the world around her.